are going to jump right in with licensed and marriage family therapist Vince Redmond, one of my favorite people on the face of the planet. He's right there. Hey, Vince, how are you?
Good morning.
Vince, I just want to take a second to say I was thinking about you last night, and this summer we had the opportunity. I got to be around you more than in one stretch than I'd gotten to be around you before, and I got to be around you with my son.
Right, it was
And
great. We had a fun time.
it was it was a very fun time, and as if I didn't love you before, and I thought I couldn't have loved you more. But when you get to be around somebody and see them in action, and we were at the Autism Society of America conference in New Orleans, and one by one as parents came up to the table and were talking to you, I just got to see more of you in action, and I just loved you all that more. So I was thinking about you last night, and how amazing you were to all the parents, and how amazing you were to their kids, and how amazing you were to my kid. And I just had warm fuzzies for you, Vince. I just think that you're a remarkable person.
Oh, thank you. We got to do it again. It was fun.
Yes, it was very fun, although it was hot.
It was very warm.
Woo, humid, I guess is the word for it. But
Yeah.
in any case, Vince, we're so thrilled that you're here with us. And for anybody who hasn't seen you before on the show, we want to say again that you're somebody who has worked in the field of autism, first as an ABA therapist for decades, and that you are now also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I can't imagine anybody who would be better at that for an autism family, because you have that experience. I know early on when we started ABA therapy, we went to a therapist, and I was frustrated because I didn't think she understood what we were doing in our home.
Right, right. It's hard.
And it was really, really frustrating to me because I felt like I was spending half of my time with her explaining what it was we were trying to do. And her response to that was, well, gee, that sounds really stressful. I think you should dial it back. Which was not helpful. So we love that you exist. We love that you are a resource for our parents who, so that you understand how difficult a family dynamic can be, but you also understand what families are trying to do with an ABA intervention. So thank you for being.
Oh, no problem. And you're right. I mean, it's a lot of education. And if the therapist or the counselor doesn't have the background in the field, it could take a while to get them caught up on really understanding the tensions and stress and anxieties that families like yourself experience on a day-to-day basis.
And saying, maybe you shouldn't do this if it's so stressful, not useful or helpful to anyone.
No.
So I encourage people to get help and support, but if you find that you're coming up against somebody with that kind of an idea, make sure you connect with somebody like Vince that gets it. But so Vince, since we're here in almost mid-December and we're cozying
Holidays.
up, big time holidays. And for everybody else, it's supposed to be this time of peace and joy. I don't know how much that there is of that left in our commercial holidays, but especially for autism families, it can be a time of heightened sensory issues. It can be a time of family intrusion, and just more stress, and sometimes less services. So help us, Vince, to know how we can deal with the stress, the additional stress that comes with the holidays.
There's a lot, like you said. I mean, you have schedules changing, you have new people, relatives and such that might be in town and integrating in with your family. We have just the change in schedules, right? I mean, being in school and then the kids now not being in school, and then you have the hustle and bustle of taking them out and about in environments that oftentimes are a lot more busy, a lot louder, a lot, like you were saying, much more sensory oriented, that could be very confusing and difficult for a child. And the biggest thing that the advice I could give, and I know we're already into December now, is looking at those situations and planning ahead as best we can. The more we can have at least a predictable schedule for the kids, the more accepted and the less anxious they will be, even though that might break routines, right? We have most of our kids have difficulties breaking their routines. So if they're not going to school or what have you, it's difficult for them to really understand what's going on. However, when we use schedules, or we use a visual schedule, or we use, whatever, at whatever level your child is at, we're able to then show them, this is what this week is going to look like. So now we're talking, the week of December 19th and on, which is when winter break typically happens. So these are the activities we're going to do this day. We're going to go here, we're going to go there, we're going to do this. So really scheduling and going over the schedule with your child, I think is definitely a good idea to do, so that they have time to process, they have time to think about what's going to happen, and then when it happens, then they know that the schedule actually is kind of foretelling them what is going to happen, so that it's not as much of an anxiety, because that anticipatory anxiety, because they don't know what's going on. So that's my first recommendation.
Okay, so a visual schedule where you can literally get the calendar down, or make a schedule for the day to show them exactly what's happening.
What we're doing.
Yes, I think that's such a great thing. I think we all forget, because you know what? It feels like another task for us, so it feels like it's going to take us more time to do that. But I always remember when I'm in the car with my husband and he's giving me directions to go someplace and he doesn't let me know when the next turn is, I want to kill him. I love that man, but I want to kill him, because I need to plan. I want to know what's happening. I want to be the captain of my own destiny when I'm driving a vehicle. And I think about our kids and how frustrating it would be if you started your day and somebody dressed you and dragged you all over the earth and you didn't know when it was going to stop.
Right. And if they're dressing you in the morning and you're thinking you're going to school, and all of a sudden you get in the car and you turn left instead of right, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And our kids have difficulties, not only processing their emotions, but yet alone communicating those. So that can oftentimes lead to some of those vocal or physical outbursts that the kids might have. And it's not because they don't want to necessarily go where you're going. It actually could still be a preferred location. It's because it wasn't processed. Because it was last minute. They didn't have time to change their mind, to get ready for what that change is going to be. And that's really the intent behind the visual schedules, is to give them time to process, give them time to understand that their day is going to be different.
Love it. Okay, so visual schedule, but I interrupted you because you had another one that you were going to give us.
Well, just kind of going down your point. So there's that. So now we're talking to talk a little bit more about family, right? This is obviously the best time of the year. We get family together and we love spending time with each other. However, sometimes we have family members that really just don't understand some of the parameters, some of the behavior interventions that might be in place to work with our kids, right? There could be, behaviors or attention-seeking behaviors, non-compliance, what have you. And what I suggest that we do then is we know who those relatives are, and I oftentimes talk about creating kind of a cheat sheet for them, so that they can have that ahead of time to understand that this is what is going on. It could be dietary restrictions, it could be behavior modifications, it could be just maybe some of the reinforcement schedules that or strategies we use. He gets a token for this, or he gets a high five for that. So that there's a little bit of more information that they have, rather than on the spot, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, rather than on the spot saying, no, don't do this, right? Then we're dealing with conflicting emotions, we have a little bit of embarrassment, we have a little bit of confusion. But if we're able to give them some information, just basic information, not full BIPs or full, treatment plans, but we're giving them just the basics information that they can do, they'll feel more competent and comfortable interacting with your child or children.
Yeah, I love that, Vince. I love the idea of getting them prepared, giving them a cheat sheet ahead of time. There are still going to be some family members who just can't keep their mouths shut.
Right.
But I know this from the past, when you have done everything that you could, there's that whole thing, the serenity prayer about, grant me the serenity to know that, accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When
Right.
you've done what you can, everything that you can, and you gave them a cheat sheet, then it clearly comes under the heading of stuff that you cannot change.
Right.
And for some reason, it like diminishes the anxiety that you would feel around it. And the other thing, I don't know whether it was you or somebody else who told me years ago, other people's opinions of my parenting are not my business.
Right.
And I, like, when I'm in a position where a family member is going, well, you shouldn't let him get away with that, and da 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 da, I think of that crocheted onto a pillow. Other people's opinions of my parenting is none of my business, because it doesn't help me in the least.
Right.
It makes me stressed out if I spend the time to think about it.
Right.
So I love preparing them, but we know that there will be some parents, or there will be some family members who they're just not going
Right.
to get it.
And sometimes it's just, you just let them go.
Yeah.
It's not worth the fight, it's not worth the battle, and you know that it's not going to be long term, so where there's going to be any regressive, effects of their behaviors on your child. And you just try to, just minimize the amount of interactions they have as much as possible. And then you just let it go.
Yeah.
It's not worth the anxiety that you feel. It's not worth the anxiety that they feel to try to fight it if, like you said, if they're just not willing to change and they're not willing to use the information that you've given them. My suggestion then, especially since in the holidays, it's usually very temporary. You have your one thing, or your Christmas Eve party or your Christmas Day party and gathering, and then that's it. Right? It's already, going to be over, and it's not worth the anxiety to continue to fight it if they refuse to change.
Yeah, over the years, I keep coming back to the idea of expectations, and that everybody around the holidays has expectations. Everybody, whether they have a child on the spectrum or not, about what they're going to eat, what it's going to be like, who's going to be there, what they're going to give, what the reaction might be, what they're going to get. People
Sure.
have a lot of expectations around the holidays, and I feel like then when you have a child who's on the autism spectrum, the expectation thing gets a little squishy, because you still have the expectations that, you want the perfect holiday, but you have fearful expectations too, and it gets a little on the wonky side. What advice do you have for us about dealing with expectations?
Well, it depends on what the expectations are. Sometimes it's good to talk about those expectations with your supervisor or your team to see if those expectations are realistic. Are those expectations that can be met? Because if they are, then that's great. Then as a unit and as a team, we can continue to work towards either the child for those expectations or the parents towards those expectations. However, if amongst conversation and discussion feel that those expectations might be a little high or a little low, that's the opportunity then to normalize the expectations, maybe to come up with a different expectation list so that we can shoot for those goals instead, right? But communicating those expectations will help, really regulate if they are too high, too low, or they're just right.
Okay. We're running out of time, Vince. Any other last minute holiday advice?
No, I think the biggest thing is try to keep the kids included as much as possible with things that they're gonna feel good about. Make sure there's a lot of sensory integration for our kids that are very sensory, sensitive. Make sure we have opportunities for them to get out, run around, make sure that you bring sensory things with them, if needed, weighted vests, blankets, those types of things, so that if they're not in the comforts of their own home, you'll have opportunities to be able to give them some of those sensory, because oftentimes, even though they're happy and they're excited and they're getting a lot of good interactions with family members and friends, it's good to be able to regulate that sensory. So I would definitely make sure that you guys are packed and ready to go.
Love that. Vince, we adore you. We hope that you have a wonderful, happy holiday season, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the new year.
You too, guys. I wish you happy holidays to everyone, and again, thank you for all the questions and everything, and I hope that we continue to make a difference.